Right now, deep inside your brain, your suprachiasmatic nucleus is dimming your alertness on a schedule you never agreed to, and the chronobiologists who map that clock admit they cannot override it. It sits above your optic nerves, smaller than a grain of rice, and it runs your entire day like a conductor nobody elected. Around 2 o'clock, it pulls a lever, not because you slept badly, not because lunch was heavy. Your master clock has a built-in dip written into its code, and it fires whether you had 8 hours of sleep or 5. You feel it as fog behind your eyes. You feel it as a sentence you have to read 3 times. You feel it as the sudden magnetic pull of your phone because your brain is hunting for anything to keep itself online. And here's the part that should bother you. This isn't a malfunction. It's a feature. Your clock is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's just that what it evolved to do in a world of open-plan offices and 3 p.m. meetings looks a lot like sabotage. Here's what's happening under the hood. Your suprachiasmatic nucleus isn't working alone. It's in constant negotiation with a second system, a slow chemical tide called adenosine, which builds in your brain every hour you're awake, like sand filling an hourglass. Alertness isn't one signal. It's 2 signals fighting each other, and for most of the day, your clock signal wins by a wide margin, holding the fog back even as adenosine climbs. But early to mid-afternoon is the one window where that fight goes quiet. The clock's push weakens on its own biological schedule, right as adenosine has built up enough to matter, and for about 90 minutes nothing is holding the door shut. That's the dip. Not low blood sugar, not a lazy afternoon. A precisely timed gap in your own brain's defenses, opening on a clock that was set before you were born. And here's what the researchers who discovered this will tell you if you ask directly. They cannot move that window. You cannot train your suprachiasmatic nucleus to skip its afternoon dip the way you train a muscle. Shift workers who have lived on inverted schedules for 20 years still get hit. Elite athletes with perfect sleep hygiene still get hit. There is no known intervention that erases the dip itself, only ways to work around it, and most of what's marketed to you as a fix doesn't touch the actual mechanism at all. It just masks the symptom while the underlying signal keeps firing beneath it. Which brings us to the part almost nobody tells you about caffeine. You've been taught that a coffee at 2 p.m. is the fix. It isn't. Caffeine doesn't clear adenosine. It blocks the receptors that detect it, so your brain stops noticing the tide even as it keeps rising. That's masking, not resetting. And when the caffeine wears off 2 or 3 hours later, all that unmeasured adenosine hits your receptors at once. That's why so many people crash harder at 5 p.m. than they ever did at 2. The coffee didn't fix the dip, it deferred it and compounded it. Worse, for people already running high sleep debt, that afternoon coffee delays the adenosine signal into the evening, wrecking the sleep pressure that's supposed to build toward bedtime. The fix everyone reaches for is quietly rigging the next 12 hours against them. So what actually interrupts it? Light. Specifically, bright light hitting your retina, because that's the one input your suprachiasmatic nucleus cannot ignore. It's the same channel it uses to set the clock in the first place. High performers who have figured this out don't fight the dip with stimulants. They step outside or stand at the brightest window they have for 10 to 15 minutes right as the fog starts. That light exposure sends a direct signal to the clock strong enough to partially override the afternoon lull, the same mechanism jet-lagged travelers use to force their internal clock to shift days early. Pair it with movement, even just walking while you take that light in, and you're hitting the alertness system through a completely different door than caffeine ever could, one that doesn't borrow against tonight's sleep to pay for this afternoon. Tonight, this is simple. Notice what time your fog actually lands tomorrow. Most people's window sits between 1 and 3 p.m. When it hits, don't reach for the cup first. Get outside or to real daylight before you do anything else. If you still want caffeine, take it after the light, not instead of it, and stop drinking it after 2 p.m. so it isn't still occupying your receptors at midnight. Small order of operations change. Same brain, different outcome by tonight. But your suprachiasmatic nucleus isn't the only structure running a schedule you never signed off on. There's another one, buried even deeper, that decides, without asking you, when you're allowed to feel afraid.